Let's play with stencils today and I'll show you how to get these lovely layered gel prints without overthinking. It is super simple and super fun. Ever pull a gel print and think, that did not work. But today I will also show you how to save those ugly ones that you thought were complete goners. Let's start with making a few backgrounds. I'm only going to run you through one of them so we can focus more on working with stencils. I've picked a lovely lemon yellow for the base. Although I have a feeling they got the labeling wrong on the packaging as this is a much brighter yellow. It is a bright, beautiful shade though. Now we have our base layer. Let's get started with our second layer using a stencil. I've picked a lovely tangerine color which will contrast beautifully with our yellow base. Remember, one of the tricks to layering is high contrast, otherwise you're likely to get mud. Let's put down the stencil. For a first layer, I prefer to use a stencil with smaller openings. It gives you room to play with for the additional layers that will go on top. Although there is no right way and you can just as easily go the other way around, and you will see an example of that later. Once you bring the paper to the stencil, make sure to press down in the open area so you get contact between the paper and the gel plate. It is a good idea to use thinner paper like rice paper or deli paper at this point. A thicker paper like copy paper will not pick up the design as well. Lift your design from the edge and keep an eye on whether all the paint is getting picked up. If you feel at any point that you did not get the paint, quickly put it down and press on it. They should get the job done if the paint has not dried yet. Look what a beautiful print we got. So far we have a 2-layered print. We will add more layers to it in a while. But first, the ghost print. This is the best part of using stencils and the results are beautiful. Once you pick your stencil, you have to quickly place your paper on your plate before the paint dries up. And look, we have another yellow background for this. Press this gently so the whole paper makes contact with the gel plate. Give it a minute to dry. I know it seems instantaneous in the video, but I'm not showing you the wait time. And the wait time will depend on the weather at your end, the temperature, the humidity, and also the brand of paint that you're using. Look how pretty it turned out. So which one do you like better, the first print or the ghost print? Now we're going to prep for additional layers. Let's go with a contrasting blue color. This should work nicely with the yellow and orange prints that we already made. Let's put the paper. Oops, we might want to add the stencil first. And then pick up the positive print of the stencil. Blue works really well with this light peachy background that we have. Remember to push the paper gently into the open spaces, and if you're impatient like me and peel the paper too early, then keep an eye on whether all the paint has come up. Doesn't it look pretty? And what a lovely ghost print. But unlike last time, we're not going to pick up the ghost print. We are going to leave it on the plate and we are going to let it dry. A little touch to make sure it is dry before we add the background color to it. I love using darker and lighter shades in the same color family as that gives you a fun contrast and is bound to work. At this point, we can just pick up the print as is and we will have a 2-layered print ready to go directly onto the paper. The gel plate has both the background layer and the stencil layer on it. The wet paint will pull up the dry paint along with it. But let's make it a little bit more interesting than that, shall we? Yes, we are adding a stencil. Choose one with big openings, but not so big that it will cover your entire paper. Did you guess what we're going to do by now? We're going to take the positive print on one of our layered prints we made earlier. Not only does it sound cool, it also looks cool. Unfortunately, my battery died and I did not record the part where I pulled up the paper, but you can see the result. People will wonder how you made something like this. Ironically, the stencil picked up a ghost print. There's a lesson to be learned here. Clean your stencils before you get a crazy buildup of paint on them, or it will pull up the paint. In my defense, I just had a workshop, so some of my stencils were drenched in paint and there wasn't enough time to clean all of them. I'm using one of my background sheets as a cleanup sheet to pick up the remnants. Let's try this again as we missed out on the ghost print and we still have one more of the yellow-orange layered prints that we want to cover. I probably should have used another stencil as I'm ending with a lot of similar positive prints. This time I'm picking the blue color on a color called American Cheese. We will follow the same steps as last time and wait for the paint to dry before we add the darker background. For the next step, I decided to use a different stencil. I love this one. I designed it myself on Illustrator and cut it out on my electronic cutter. It is a blessing to be able to make my own stencils because that means I can make it to the size I need. I do still buy some as well. I have a mix of them. Oh, this is definitely one of my favorite prints so far. How many of those yellow backgrounds did I make? Well, it is a good thing I did, because we get to put this beautiful ghost print on it. Love the grungy look. I believe this color is sap green. It is always a good idea to put less paint on your plate and add more if needed. If you start with more paint than you need, then you will just be wasting it as you remove it from your plate. Unless you have another gel plate where you can transfer the extra paint, which I do, but guess who still uses a cleanup sheet? So save the paint, less is more. And yes, the stencil has seen better days. And because I am out of backgrounds, another lesson, always make more than you think you will need. I am going to pull the ghost print onto a cleanup sheet. This right there is the right amount of paint to start with, and as you can see, it is good enough to cover the entire plate. And yes, I'm guilty of using more paint earlier on. And since we're out of backgrounds, let's make another one. The hot pink is gorgeous. I love the accidental crackled effect we got because the paper was a bit crinkled when we placed it on the plate. Let's use the stencil and use a lighter pink color with it. Let's also add a bit of white to it. I'm pretty sure you know the routine by now. Lay the paper, press down for contact between paper and gel plate, and then pull the paper to reveal a lovely gel print. And of course, remove the stencil to get that amazing ghost print onto another hot pink background. Let's add violet to the mix. As you can see, I've added more paint than I should have. Just roll the brayer back to remove the extra paint and roll it off on a cleanup sheet. Let's use a stencil and get the positive print onto a cleanup sheet that we're using to pick up prints that had nowhere else to go. The result we get is meh for sure, and we will come back to that. But let's pick up the ghost print. I tried picking up the extra paint that was left over, which was a good idea until I tried removing it from the smaller space and ended up removing part of the design. Best to leave your ghost print alone in such instances. Today is definitely the day for using lighter and darker versions of the same color. And here I go again with Victorian purple for a violet ghost print. I'm completely out of backgrounds at this point, so I've just started picking up the prints we have been working on and started to add these layers on top. I am literally having to fight with the stencil to be able to pull up this print. Oh, come on now. The paint layers on the stencil were not letting go. I finally managed in the end, and look what a pretty print we got. On the bright side, we had a perfect ghost print, which I decided to add to a leafy design because why not? This is definitely my gel plate printing philosophy. What is the worst that can happen? You can always add another layer to cover up a boo-boo. And we are back to violet again. And as it turns out, I was wrong about being out of backgrounds. I found one hiding under all my prints. So here we go with adding a layer on top of it. And the ghost print goes on one of the earlier prints. Ooh, I do kinda like it. Now we get down to saving a not so great print. Best to use a stencil with big openings so you cover most of the ugly print. Since the print is dark, the best option is to go with white for a full contrast. Then voila, ugly print saved. I love how some of the design is still visible through the white florals. The layers give the print a depth it would not have had we just gone with a two-layered print. This print looks so much more interesting after adding the ghost print to it. And while I was adding more layers to the other prints, I figured why let this one sit out. It turned out okay and will work well for a collage. The ghost print looks beautiful and I wish I had a background on hand to put it on. But since I didn't and I did not want to waste it, I took the closest print and used that. Not the best idea in the world. Although I don't mind the bottom part, I'm not particularly fond of the top. I decided to add another layer using a bamboo stencil before I get down to fixing it. I only spread the paint in the center area as the stencil is pretty narrow. So what do you think? Would you have kept it as is? Let's quickly get the ghost print off before we start fixing the other one. Let's use a high contrast color like white and my favorite stencil for fixing prints I do not like. You guessed it, it is the floral one. Oh wow, I'm glad I added this layer. I love the layering and the depth it adds, but the chaos is gone now. And I feel this print also improved after adding the ghost print from this floral stencil. Let's look at all the prints one by one and let me know which one you like best.